Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is WaleAde. And on Religion and Politics today, we just want to talk about a very important topic. And it's something that I think that I hear about a lot in a lot of the different circles that I am. And that is basically dealing with grief and really specifically the black man. As many of the famous uh, he wasn't quite a DJ. That's the joke they always said. But DJ Twitch, better known as Stephen Boss, earlier this week, it's reported that he took his life by death by suicide. And as I was just thinking about this, one of the things that I've done in my past and that I've had the privilege of is really working with a lot of black men, whether they're older, especially some younger black men, usually the teenage years. I worked in the juvenile detention center, and I've also worked in a foster care facility. And one of the things that I do know is that, there's a lot of grief that happens in the black community in general. We've been through a lot in our history. We go through a lot every time we step outside of the doors. We just have this heaviness to us that not only does it, build our fortitude up, and it sometimes people say makes us stronger, but also it can really bring us down to some deep lows. And this week hasn't been the best of weeks. A lot of things have happened. I'm recovering right now actually from COVID. And so, it just hasn't been one of the brightest weeks. But one of the things that I definitely wanted to talk about is how do we deal with grief? Because one of the things that I've seen is that every time it seems like an iconic black figure, passes tragically or something happens to them, I see that it doesn't just affect those that are in the close circles of those people, but those people that have watched them on TV, who have listened to their music, who have really just connected with them in some form or fashion. It's trauma that has hit all of us. And how do we deal with that grief? How do we actually, express ourselves? And how do we make sure that, we're living and we're acknowledging our grief, we're processing our grief, and we're, able to make it through our grief? Because it's not an easy thing to do. And I think especially as black men, one of the things that, we've heard, I know my generation and probably, before me and even after me, it's not okay to cry, toughen up, suck it up, stop being a little, what. I've heard it all, those are things that are still ingrained in me to this day. And so a lot of times when I have, sad moments or, somebody may pass or die, a lot of times it's something that I just keep inside, something that I just, I don't have ways to express. And I think a lot of times, us as black men, we have all of this grief. We have these stresses, whether it's from the job, whether it's, trying to be a provider for our families, whether it's just trying to find our purpose in life, feeling like we have to produce. I think one of the things that's biggest for men is that we feel like we have to produce. And if we don't produce, then there is no value that it seems like we have. Because I think the world, everywhere around us, you're only valuable as a black man, it seems, if you produce something, whether that's money, whether that's, talent, resource, you have to produce. So if you don't produce, then you're almost useless. And I think that's something that no man wants to feel, is that they are not making some sort of necessary contribution to this world. And so, I saw a post earlier. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look it up now. But I saw a post earlier on Facebook. And one of the things that it said, and I just thought it was basically, it kind of summed it up. It was in response to the death of Stephen Boss, excuse me. And so let me read it real quick once I find it. It's something that kind of was a chain letter, a chain post that other men were supposed to post as well. But it kind of touched me because I think it kind of embodied some of the sentiments that I feel that a lot of men have been going through. It said, "You'd be surprised at how many times a man sits in his car, on his bed, in the bathroom, in the living room, and holds his tears because he's so stressed or lost or confused or hurt or ready to give up. But when he shows his face again, he looks perfectly fine, unbothered, and he still manages to smile and go about his business like nothing happened." And so it just goes on after that to affirm, men about their hard work and how resilient they are. Um, but I thought that was like a very powerful piece because, you know, I think, in some of the male circles that I've been across as well, it's like, who do you share these struggles with, right? It seems like sometimes I'm with guys, we're talking, and they think about, significant others. Like they really want to, share the heaviness of their heart. They really want to just pour out to those who are close to them, especially, the men I know, their lady counterparts, whether that's their wives, their girlfriends, their committed relationships. But something I always hear is that, the response is that it seems like a lot of times women aren't able to handle the emotions, especially, of us being black men, because we're so heavy, right? And so when we express our emotions, it's not necessarily a light thing, but it's a heavy thing. And I think one of the things, the issues is when it comes to those expressions inside of a relationship, is that a lot of times, women have not actually seen or had, much experience with dealing with a man's emotions, right? So whether that's somebody they might have dated in the past, whether that might be their father, whether it might be the other men that are in their lives, because we've all been taught to bottle up our emotions. Most of the time, a lot of women don't know how to handle it, especially the raw emotions of a hurting black man. And so sometimes, I heard that men try to express themselves. They try to open themselves up to their lady counterparts or their lady partners. And, it just doesn't always end up in the best way. And so a lot of men are like, where do I go then? I want to be, honest with my spouse. I want to be open with my spouse or my significant other. And it doesn't seem like they're able or they have the capacity to hold a space for my emotions. And so one of the things that I really want to stress is that it's important, especially for black men, to have other communities of black men, but not just any community. Because, we'll go out, we'll play sports, we'll go, some guys will go to the bar, some guys will, go watch the game. And those things are good. I think men should do things like that, or men should, kind of come together in community. But one of the things that, I think it gets overlooked is the emotional needs of a man. As a matter of fact, a lot of times, even in our households today, a lot of most black families, are now growing up in single parent homes, unfortunately. And so what does that mean? That means a lot of times, there's not a steady presence of both parents in the house. And most of those, houses are led by single moms. And so a lot of times men don't even know how to interact with other men on a deeper level because they don't even have that experience in their own homes. And so I think it's about time as we look at the story of Stephen Boss, as we look at other stories of black men, as we look at the rise of the suicide rate, especially amongst young black men. As a matter of fact, I saw an alarming statistic that said suicide is the second leading cause of death for those who are like the teenage years of the black males. And so, I mean, that's profound that it's the second leading cause of death. And so I think it's time for us to really find ways to heal, find ways to hold space for each other. And so I just want to encourage us, one of the things that I've done in the past, and I think, just hearing the story of Stephen Boss and some other stories, it just kind of brings back to my heart, the struggle of men and the struggles that I have too. Because personally, like I said, I got some bad information or bad news today. And I'm still not sure how to even process or how to even grieve. I think so. Basically, I lost a loved one. It was a relative, and I really loved him like a little brother, and so that was something hard. And it's still not was, it still is hard for me to even process. As a matter of fact, I'm just thinking about, how I handle death. I've told people before, like there was a period in my life where it seemed like people, one person after the other person after the other person was dying to the point that I was so numb that it was just like I couldn't even feel anymore. And I think that's kind of sometimes the state that a lot of us get in, is that we're so numb that we don't even know how to feel when we want to feel. And so one of the things that I did in the past is I started, like a male group that really helped to talk about emotions. And, since I'm a pastor, I brought the emotional side of the Bible, especially male characters, into the conversation where we connected it with real life. It was catered towards black men, so we talked about a lot of black male issues, and we saw how a lot of our issues were in the Bible. And we talked about it, we shared, we prayed together, and it was just such a powerful group of guys and group of men. And I think it was beneficial to all of us. And I think I'm going to start it back up just because it's been on my heart. But I just encourage for those. I know we got a lot of now black male therapists. I know we have a lot of black men that may be, trained in emotional intelligence. I think it's time for us to step up and really reach out to our brothers, create communities. And I've seen some talks of it on social media. I'm happy when I see it on my timeline. Some of the black men that I know that are highly, emotionally intelligent, and really some of that are counselors. They're all working on something because they know that this is a need. Because we have to reach people before they get to the point where they feel like there's no more to give. And so I just want to encourage. I wasn't going to be on here long because I still have to take my time to process. But I just kind of wanted to encourage you all. Like men, stop holding it in, right? Stop just taking it all and saying, okay, let me smile. Let me just, show up. Let me man up, because I think what's happening is it's either killing you. It's either going to kill you outwardly in an explosion, or it's going to kill you gradually with the stress that you're putting in your body. And so we got to find ways to release. And so some of the ways to release, I know is number one. I know black men, a lot of us don't like going here, but we have to start going to counseling. And the reason why we have to start going to counseling is because there's so much stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I know whether it's, at the job, right? A lot of us are in places that still are have microaggressions and still are maybe, discriminatory in some form or fashion. Some of them, kind of use and abuse us, right? And we just have to do it because it's like we have kids at home. We have a wife to take care of. We got bills to pay, and so I just got to put my head down and work. But what's happening to all of the effects of those negative experiences day after day after day? It builds up, and that stress builds in your body. And so you have to have some type of form of release. And so for men, number one, I say take care of your heart, which means go to counseling. Figure out ways to cope with the grief, right? Some of the ways that I know that I've learned is to journal. Some people who have more artistic styles, they write poetry, or, some guys might write raps or rhymes or whatever it is. Do what you have to do. Get some of that out. There's also the physical component because men have a lot of testosterone. So sometimes we got to just go hit the gym, go make sure that you're pumping weights, that you're, hitting that bag, that you're running up that hill, do something to also physically get that thing out of you. And then most importantly, I would say make sure that you are connected to Christ, right? I think the spiritual is so important and it's so overlooked. A lot of times, people go to just counseling and think everything is going to be okay, but we're made up of a spiritual nature, right? We as a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that, God breathed the breath of life into us. So God gave us his spirit. And so there's a spiritual nature to us that I don't care how much counseling you get. I don't care how much, advice that you get or self-help books that you read. there's something that only God can do in order to solidify and give you the peace that you need. And so I think it's important for us, men. I know a lot of us, even when I go to church, I'm a pastor, it's mostly women, right? And a lot of men aren't really, I don't know, I can't judge where they are with God, but it doesn't seem like, that they are, really taking as the utmost priority, the things of God. And so I would just encourage us to turn to God. I would encourage us to really spend some time with Him, because as I think about my healing experience, God was a part of every piece and turn and nook and corner of that experience. As a matter of fact, He's the reason why I went to counseling. I wasn't going to go to counseling on my own, but I eventually did because I feel like God led me there. And I've grown so much because of the counseling, because of the trainings, because of all the things that God has led me to. And so I think, it's just something that we need to do. And take some time, right? I think one of the things that we don't do is that we don't cry, right? Even now, I know I'm going to cry at some point. I cried a little bit earlier, and I know I'm going to cry again. And it's something that, I just need to do. It was crazy because I was crying, and it's something in me still, even as much as, I feel like I've grown in my emotional intelligence, something in me still that was deep rooted that said, stop crying, right? That's something I was still saying, man up. There's still something in me that was just automatically turning me to shut up the grief that I need to have. But a pastor once told me, Pastor Dr. Orville Brown, he kind of pointed out in the Word that in the Beatitudes of Matthew 5, it says, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And so what does that mean? That means the comfort of God comes as you mourn. See, if you don't mourn, you will never get that comfort that you need. In fact, the mourning, the stress and the agony is just going to build, and it's just going to build and just going to build until it eventually explodes, right? But God gave us, these tears. Matter of fact, the story in the Bible. God found Lazarus, even though He knew He was going to resurrect him, Jesus still wept. He still cried. He still showed emotion, right? And I feel like Jesus is the most manly, man that we could model ourselves after. And so all I'm saying is, it's okay to cry. It's okay to say I'm overwhelmed. It's okay to say that I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed. I know a lot of times, the world doesn't want to hear that, but you have to find you a circle. And I think there's a lot of circles that are now being created in order for you to be able to express yourself freely, where you won't be judged, where you won't be put down, but you'll be able to get that out. Because I feel like we have to get it out. We have to get it out because it's a lot that is on our minds, it's a lot that is on our hearts. And so I'm not going to be on here long. Like I said, I just want to, shout out all the Black men. I see you, I talk to a lot of you. I see how hard you work. I see the blood, the sweat, the tears, the grind that you do. And so I just want to say that, and even if you don't, let's say you're just down and out. Let's say you don't have the energy to do anything. You're almost about to give up. You're still valuable as is. I want to make sure that I stress that, because a lot of times we have to work for our value. We have to earn our value. But God looks at each and every one of us, and you are valuable as is. And so I just encourage you all, like, really, really internalize that. If you got to go into the mirror and just say it to yourself, I mean, this is affirmations, this is what people do. I would just be like, you are valuable as is. That's why God created you. I am valuable as is. That's why God created me. Make it personal, and tell yourself that. Keep telling yourself that. Go out, do what you have to do. Follow, the path that God has for you. But you are valuable as is. And so, I just wanted to spread some love to the Black men. It's a struggle. There's not many places that we know that are around us, right, where we can come together and express ourselves freely and openly. But just want to say there's much love on my end towards y'all. I see y'all struggle. I mean, I'm in the trenches. I see it. I'm struggling as well, and I just really see what we go through. And I just want to affirm y'all, because whether the world sees it, whether your significant other sees it, whether your family sees it, whether your kids see it, whether your bosses see it, you're working hard. So just keep up the good work. Get the resources that you need. Get the help that you need. Take your time off. Another thing men don't do is take vacations. Take your vacation, right? go do something, for at least, even if it's just a day. Make sure that you are taking that time away so that it doesn't get to a place where, everything piles up until it becomes overwhelming. And so, for anybody out there, I'm going to put some resources, some links in the description, whether that's suicide prevention, whether that's mental health. If you need a counselor, put that in the comments. Whatever, I can hit you up. I can give you some good ones, as a matter of fact. And so, just take care of yourself. This has been a hard year. I know this has been a tough year for a lot of people, but just keep going. Get the help that you need. Take the break that you need. But just know that you're loved and that there is support out there. And so, once again, I just want to thank you all for joining. This has been another edition of Religion and Politics. I'm going to go grieve now. And so I just hope, and I just also want to shout out, my homeboys, and I'm not going to name their names, but my homeboys in Huntsville, they just lost their father as well. And so that, the time of the holidays, it seems like there's just a lot of grief going on. And so it's a hard time for a lot of people. And so I'm just, asking, like, take your time, do what you got to do. Make sure that you're okay, because you can't be everything to everyone else if you're not everything to yourself. And so thank you once again for joining us on Religion and Politics. And I hope you all have a blessed day. Please, please, please take care of yourself. Until next time.